Good afternoon and welcome everybody to another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. And it's always what we're trying to do is to highlight and bring to you is companies that maybe are a little bit overlooked and not quite so well known in the marketplace. But also along with that, everybody is asking right now, what is going on in markets? Now we just had the S&P go flat for the year. The NASDAQ market is up 10% for the year. Everything is rallying. Well, the answer is I don't know exactly across the markets, but I do know in the metals space why markets are firm. Metals have always been a storage of value. People like to look, touch, and feel it. And to that degree, I can understand that sector a little bit more. And being more specific, we have with us today Matthew Gill from White Rock Minerals, a very interesting company that has just gone through some transformational capital raising and also has some very interesting assets up in Alaska that we'd like to hear about. And with that introduction, Matthew, welcome to 18 Minutes with 180 Markets.
Thanks, Greg. Great to be here and great to have a chat.
Awesome. Matthew, I always like to start out, people love stories. They want to hear your personal story. What's your journey from 10 years old to where you are today?
So I grew up in Melbourne. I'm a one-eyed Carlton supporter, so that's the most important point I probably need to get across. I'm a mining engineer, so I went to Melbourne University, did mining engineering, and from that I've worked variously in Tasmania and Western Australia, the highlands of PNG, India, Bolivia, again back into Australia. So broad experiences from everything from an underground miner through to my current role as the MD and CEO of White Rock Minerals.
That's incredible, wide-ranging, and if you don't mind me just touching on it a little bit more about the, you've worked in so many different countries. Is there anything specific that you've picked up over the years? Everybody does it a little bit differently that maybe you just want to touch on, and maybe even how that relates to White Rock.
Yeah, I think opportunities, Australia is quite technically advanced, so I think a lot of technology taking that technology from Australia overseas has been a great opportunity. And I think what I've learned is the cultural differences are, very, very important and can be subtle from country to country. And I've learned that while the technicals might be fairly similar, the geology and the mining approaches and processing, right. It is the people layer that has probably made me more attuned, having worked overseas and just interacting with different people, different cultures, different languages, what you say, what you don't say, mannerisms, very, very important. Yeah,
absolutely. I can appreciate that. And then, maybe, touching on a country or an area that is not quite so, it may be remote physically, but it is first world as far as what's ownership. Relating to your Red Mountain project in Alaska, maybe can you just discuss with us, firstly, just Alaska itself? I think that a lot of our viewers are not necessarily that familiar with it from an exploration point of view. Can you just touch on it from a gold, and metals point of view?
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, for a lot of people, Alaska is a bit of a wild frontier, a place to go for a holiday. It's geologically extremely perspective. It's got the world's largest zinc mine, operated by Teck. It's got one of the largest undeveloped gold and copper deposits called Pebble. Not far from us is a gold mine that many Australians would now come to know of, Pogo, which was recently acquired by Northern Star. Again, within 200 kilometres of where we are is Fort Knox, the gold mine. Most people have heard of Fort Knox. So it's got a disproportionate number of tier one mines. It's true that it's expensive to work there, and there is obviously a winter. But Alaska, there's less than 1 million people in the whole of the state. And so there is a great opportunity for getting on the ground in an underexplored but very mining friendly and first world jurisdiction. Alaska is rated in the top 5 jurisdictions in the world, and we've had, great experiences, getting on the ground, getting approvals, meeting the governor, dealing with their Department of Natural Resources. So it's got a lot going for it.
Right. And also, just, obviously it is quite cold there. Could you give in layman's terms some specificity around, like, what are the challenges of mining in such a cold area?
Yeah, so look, we're central Alaska, so we're not, above the Arctic Circle. So at the minute it's mid-20s, getting down to about 10 degrees at night. So, that's quite a nice mild summer. It gets over 30 degrees and they will get bushfires. But then in winter, yes, it'll get to -20, -25. So winters are sort of from October through to April. But you can mine open pit or underground 24/7, 365 days a year. You just dress for it and you operate inside cabs of trucks or loaders. And the processing plants generally will be indoors, but you can operate any time of the year. When you're in exploration like we are, as much as I love geologists, you can't really put them on a drill rig when it's -20 degrees.
Yeah, it's a little hard.
So the field season for exploration is fairly tight, but that teaches us to be very efficient with our time and our money and our planning.
Right.
So we'll be on the ground, for instance, this time next week, and we hope to go through to sometime in September, depending on the weather.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And then also the specific area in Central Alaska, it's referred to as the Last Chance area. Is that correct?
So the project is called Red Mountain, and it was very creatively named by the geologist because there's a red mountain there. And it's our focus for the last few years has been on the high-grade zinc, lead, silver, gold, VMS, so polymetallic deposits. We've got 2 already. And last year, in the course of exploring for these high-grade zinc, silver, polymetallic deposits, we also knew we were in gold country, and so we're assaying for gold. And on the back of those assays, we announced earlier this year extra land, this discovery, this last chance gold anomaly. So that last chance gold anomaly sits in the headwaters of the Last Chance Creek, sits within our strategic land package, which is about 560 square kilometres, within the project that generically we've called Red Mountain Project.
Right. So it's almost like an upside optionality, if you will, whereas the zinc, so far what we've seen is pretty impressive at 13% and so forth.
That's right. So, we're very fortunate to already have a high-grade JORC resource for the zinc. It's 9 million tonnes of just under 13% zinc equivalent, as you say. And now we've got also this great gold anomaly that's of a significant size and scale to that which Pogo was discovered on, to put it in perspective. So we're very excited about having been able to attract that interest, raise some money. And so within a year of announcing its discovery, we'll be drilling it. Now, that's pretty aggressive and moving pretty quickly, but that's also an indication that it's quite a robust, almost walk-up drill target type of proposition.
Right. I mean, that is, pretty incredible when you think about it. And, and I suppose, maybe now's a good time to segue into it. You just did a capital raising, and what I thought was really interesting, as much as the amount of money that you raised, were the investors involved. You really had some, very astute investors. Can you maybe touch on that a little bit? What did they see that, still perhaps, I mean, your stock has had a tremendous run, post the placement, but it's still arguably very, very low.
I would certainly agree with that last point, but I'm not the last managing director.
I've never heard, by the way, an MD say that the stock is overvalued.
That's right. That's right. If I said that, shoot me. Look, we believed in the results that we had. It is hard to describe a gold stream sediment anomaly to a retail market. It's not like it's 3 metres of 30 grams a tonne gold that most people would be familiar with. So being able to put it in layman's terms was a bit of a challenge. But those exploration geologists or geology fund managers absolutely got what we could see. And so a groundswell of those types of people sort of formed this core, you know, wanting us to drill it, saying, you know, very interesting, very exciting. You know, we've got people in our data room. For some, it was a little bit early, but what really the event that really changed it was support by Dr. Quinton Hennig. For those that know, he's involved with Novo Resources. And when Quinton saw what we could see, he got right behind us and helped put this story in front of his people in North America. Right. So while we had a good cornerstoning group here in Australia, including some of our major shareholders, because it's Alaska and North Americans probably understand Alaska a little bit more, and with Quinton's network of technical people and financial markets, made all the difference to get the book build that we ended up getting done.
Yeah, because it was, you know, frankly, it was massive. There's no other description for it. And
yeah, it was. Sorry, go on.
No, I continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, so look, bizarre is a good word for it. That we actually built the book without a term sheet. Canaccord are the lead manager. They've come in to give us a hand, but the book was essentially done before then. That we got a major cornerstone in Palisades Goldcorp out of Canada. That we got a major cornerstone in Crescat out of Denver. That we also got major support out of Europe and here in Australia, as I said, without a term sheet, without a roadshow, and to a point where we had to scale back the amount of interest that was being thrown at us, was quite amazing.
Yep, as somebody that's done a lot of these, I've seen, you know, the good and the not so good, and that sounds like a great experience. And also, I suppose that you do have a clear path of announcement of news flow that's going to be coming up. It sounds like in the next 180 to 360 days, that's going to be very, could be fabulous. Is that what you would expect for the market as well?
Yeah, so we're planning to be on the ground this time next week, right. And we'll lay out in a bit more detail. The announcements to date have said that, but they've been more around the capital raising and those compliance requirements. So we're now going to start to unpack what our plans are. We've already got people in self-isolation in Alaska going through the COVID management component. We've already rented a tourist cabin accommodation that we'll commandeer. So we've got all of that planning in place. We'll be on the ground this time next week. We do initial geochem mapping sampling, and we hope by the end of July to be drilling.
That's amazing.
And then into September. Yep.
That's amazing. And as far as on a cost basis, so far it sounds like you spent about $14 million into the project. And how are you positioned post capital raise? I think that it's another $7 million or something. Would that see you through to say like the end of the year hypothetically? Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. And into. So for us, it is certainly sufficient. In fact, we're contemplating whether we should have a second drill rig. Right. So, the funding upsizing that we did was to allow us that opportunity depending on what we saw on the ground. But one rig is manageable. And as I said, we're going from zero to drilling in 8 months. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but certainly we're now well funded for this season. Absolutely.
Fantastic. And now segueing completely back home to maybe your other project in Carrington that our viewers may know a little bit better than Alaska in New South Wales. Can you just touch on that a little bit, maybe? I know it's not getting any press at the moment, but maybe just give us a little bit of time on it.
Yeah, so White Rock listed in 2010 with the Mount Carrington project. It's in northern New South Wales. It's 2 hours inland from Byron Bay. It's had past mining. There's a JORC resource, about 340,000 ounces of gold, a JORC resource of silver, about 23 million ounces of silver. So we are one of the rare exposures to silver on the ASX, and we do have shareholders on our register that like White Rock's exposure to silver. They sit in separate deposits to the gold. It's on mining lease. There's past mining. You walk onto ore. So it's a significantly well advanced project. We've got a pre-feasibility study done on it, and we're currently updating that, and we hope to let the market know about that in the next month or two. And with the current very strong Aussie gold price, it has attracted a bit of interest, and we're encouraging people to look at the asset. We are not adverse to joint ventures or other M&A opportunities. Clearly, we've got two assets. They are quite different jurisdictions, different stages. We are certainly focused on Alaska, but we do want to move Mount Carrington forward for the benefit of our shareholders in whatever form that might look like.
Yeah, no, I mean, that certainly makes sense because it is hard. Maybe even touch on it, just the sheer brain power of managing two separate projects like that. That can be incredibly challenging for you, isn't it?
Rowan and I are pretty adept at that. Rowan, my exploration manager, has worked for Newmont.
Right.
I've worked for large companies. There is a view that two projects is a nice de-risking exposure. Yes, we're going to be drilling a gold anomaly, but that's backed by a high-grade zinc resource in Alaska, and it's also backed by Mount Carrington's gold and silver feasibility study. So there's two levers. You can play a tune on two. It's a little bit hard to play a tune with one. And exposure to Australia and Alaska are two great jurisdictions. Slightly different exposures, gold, silver, or gold, zinc, silver. So we want to grow the company, but we want to do it intelligently. And as I said, not growth for growth's sake, but that does add value for White Rock shareholders. And to your point about value, it might be that we're not getting full value, or it might be that we could get better value maybe by looking at our two assets slightly differently than we are currently.
Right. No, that certainly makes sense. And what I also like that you've done is, it sounds like you're very aware of not just the operational side of the geology, if you will, but also the funding side and how your financial statements look. Because obviously it means nothing if you don't have the money to drill. It means nothing, and if you're sitting there just languishing away, that's death by 1,000 cuts, right?
That's right. There's not much point having it if you're not going to do something with it. Correct.
Absolutely. Well, Matthew, thank you very much for your time today. I must say, it really sounds amazing that you have all these potential announcements that are going to come out in the next, let's call it, really pretty short term here, and some pretty straightforward, roadmap, if you will. Matthew, with that, thank you very much for your time. We really look forward to sharing the journey with you, and please keep us updated.
Absolutely. No, looking forward to hopefully some great news flow to come over the next few months, Greg.
Thanks.